Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We will talk about histology of gastrointestinal tract. The basic structure of the GIT. The gastrointestinal tract is a tube lined by mucosa membrane and surrounded by connective tissue in form of serosa or adventitia. The type of epithelium lining the part of the gastrointestinal tract is different. For example, the epithelium lining the stomach is different from the epithelium lining the esophagus according to their function. So, what are the basic structure of this gastrointestinal tract? Consists of 4 layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, serosa or adventitia. Mucosa. Mucosa means lining epithelium. This mucosa also subdivided into two layers: lining epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. The 4 layers of gastrointestinal tract are mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, and serosa. These are 4 layers of gastrointestinal tract from inside outside: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, and serosa or adventitia. This mucosa or lining epithelium also subdivided into epithelium lining. Deep to it located the lamina propria. This lamina propria composed of connective tissue and contain glands and vessels. Deep to it located muscularis mucosa. This muscularis mucosa composed of smooth muscle arranged as inner circular and outer longitudinal. And this muscularis mucosa separates the mucosa from submucosa. Again, this is the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, serosa or adventitia. The mucosa subdivided into lining epithelium, lamina propria. This lamina propria consists of connective tissue which contain gland and vessels. Deep to it layer of smooth muscle known as muscularis mucosa. So mucosa subdivided into lining epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. Okay, deep mucosa located submucosa. This submucosa consists of dense connective tissue, contain blood vessels, lymphatic and nerve. The nerve here form plexus and known as submucosal plexus or Meissner plexus. Deep to the submucosa, there is muscularis layer. This muscularis layer, in most part of gastrointestinal tract, consists of two layers. Okay, between these two layers, located connective tissue and nerve plexus known as Enteric plexus or Auerbach plexus. Auerbach plexus or Enteric plexus located in the muscularis layer. Submucosal plexus or Meissner plexus located in the submucosa. The outer layer is serosa or adventitia. This serosa consists of simple squamous epithelium and this simple squamous epithelium forms the mesothelium, and this serosa located in the area of peritoneum, while structure has no peritoneal covering, has outer covering known as adventitia. If the structure has peritoneal covering, the outer layer known as serosa. If it has no peritoneal covering, the outer connective tissue known as adventitia. Okay? Again, the gastrointestinal tract consists of mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, and adventitia or serosa. Okay, adventitia or serosa, we say serosa if it has peritoneal covering. If it doesn't, we known as adventitia. Muscular layer, it consists of a smooth layer, and in most part of gastrointestinal tract consists of two layers, and the plexus between it known as Auerbach plexus. The nerve plexus in the submucosa. The submucosa consists of connective tissue, contains the gland, blood vessel, and nerve. The nerve known as submucosa or Meissner plexus. Okay? The oral cavity. The oral cavity is lined by stratified squamous epithelium, keratinized or non-keratinized, according to the region. For example, in the dorsal aspect of the tongue, in the hard palate, in the gum, this area surrounded by keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. While the ventral aspect of the tongue, the internal aspect of the cheek, surrounded by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Deep to the epithelium in the hard palate, there are lamina propria, and this lamina propria contain many papillae and rest directly on the bone. So here the layer consists of two, mucosa and submucosa. Okay. The internal aspect of the lip surrounded by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, while the outer part surrounded by keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Between them there is transitional part or zone. The submucosa of the soft palate characterized by presence of the many mucus and lymphoid nodule. The tongue. The tongue is formed by skeletal muscle covered by mucosa membrane. The muscle of the tongue arranged into bundles. These bundles separated by connective tissue. The mucosa membrane of the tongue is closely adherent to the muscles because the connective tissue of lamina propria that located between the muscle bundle because the lamina propria here penetrates the space, the mucosa membrane is adherent to the muscles. The mucous membrane is smooth in the ventral surface, while in the dorsal surface of the tongue is raised and rough because the presence of the papillae. In the posterior part of the tongue, or in the postpharyngeal part of the tongue, we can see many elevation. This elevation formed by lymphoid tissue. This lymphoid tissue arranged into two groups: lingual tonsil and lymphoid nodule. These are lymphoid nodules, and also we have lingual tonsil. The lymphoid nodule located near to the opening or crypts of the gland. Papillae. What is a papillae? Papillae are elevation of epithelium and lamina propria. The lining epithelium and lamina propria elevated in some areas, for example, in the hard palate, in the tongue, to form the papillae. The papillae are four types. The first one, known as filiform papillae. This one known as filiform papillae. These filiform papillae are numerous and present over the entire surface of the dorsal aspect of the tongue. The epithelium of the filiform papillae does not contain taste buds and is keratinized. So, the filiform papillae are most present in the dorsal aspect of the tongue. Between this filiform papillae located the fungiform papillae. This fungiform papillae has dilated part and dilated upper part and narrow stalk. This fungiform papillae has narrow stalk and dilated and smooth upper part. Okay. The third type, which are poorly present in the human, known as folate papillae. The last type, known as circumvallate papillae, which located in the V-shaped region that separate the oral part from the pharyngeal part of the tongue. The dorsal surface of the tongue divided into two parts. Dorsal part, the dorsal aspect of the tongue by the V-shaped structure divided into oral part and pharyngeal part. In this region located the circumvallate papillae. Okay, so we have three types of papillae in human. Filiform papillae are most common. Located between them is fungiform papillae. In the V shape located the circumvallate papillae. Okay. What is a taste bud? Taste buds are onion structures, contain about 50 to 100 cells. This cell are divided into two types: supporting cell and test cell. Here is the supporting cell and here is the test cell, divided into two types: supporting cell and test cell. The test bud rests in the basal lamina and in the apical part here there are many microvilli pass through opening known as test pores. The test bud regenerate from the undifferentiated basal cell. Okay, from the Now finish from the oral cavity, move to the pharynx. The pharynx lined by also stratified squamous epithelium, where it continues with esophagus. So the lower part lined by stratified non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, while the nasopharynx, which is part of respiratory tract, lined by pseudo-stratified columnar ciliated epithelium with goblet cell. The lamina propria contain many mucous glands and composed of dense connective tissue. Okay, move to the esophagus. The esophagus consists of these four layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, and adventitia. Mucosa, the lining epithelium of esophagus, is stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized. ربنا خلق الأورال cavity, الفارنكس and esophagus lined by this type because this area there are many friction of food. الفود هنا بيكون solid. لما تكون many layers regeneration is easy. وعن this area بتتحمل لي شنو؟ بتحمل لي الفريكشن، بتتحمل لي الاحتكاك مع الفود. عشان كده ربنا خلق الحتات دي انها بتتكون لي من stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized, while it keratinized in the outer part of the lip, in the hard palate, dorsal aspect of the tongue, and in the gums. Okay, the inner layer of the esophagus is mucosa, which is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Deep to it there is lamina propria, which contain mucous gland and blood vessels and lymphatic. Deep to the lamina propria there is muscularis mucosa, similar arrangement, except that in the lamina propria there are mucous gland in the lower third of esophagus. Deep to mucosa there is submucosa with the same arrangement and muscularis mucosa. The muscularis layer. The muscularis layer consists of two layers of smooth muscle arranged as inner circular and outer longitudinal layer. This muscularis layer in the upper third of the esophagus composed of striated muscle, that means skeletal muscle. In the lower third consists of smooth muscle, while in the middle third is mixed, between the smooth and skeletal muscle. Okay, again, the muscular layer composed of the muscles. This muscle arranged into inner circular and outer longitudinal. In the upper third of esophagus is smooth, is skeletal. In the lower third is smooth. In the middle third is mixed. This is transverse section of the esophagus. Mucosa here, submucosa in the lower third, contain glands, also contains the blood vessels and lymphatic and nerves. Muscularis mucosa, deep to it there is deep to the submucosa there is muscularis layer or muscularis externa. The stomach. The lining epithelium here differ according to their function. Here we need secretion, non-protection for the organ. So it is formed by the epithelium here consists of simple columnar epithelium, and the mucosa is highly folded, and this fold of mucosa known as rugae. The gastric gland open into mucosa. This is a fold of mucosa known as rugae. The gland open here into mucosa. The gland are many types, such as mucus cell, which secretes the mucus. This mucus responsible for protection of mucosa and also for replication of food. Parietal cell responsible for production of HCl, an intrinsic factor. Chief cell, which secrete pepsin and lipase. Endocrine cell secretes the gastrin enzyme. These are glands of the stomach. Okay, the cell here located in the glands. Deep to mucosa there is lamina propria, which contain blood vessel, lymphatic. Muscularis mucosa consists of smooth muscle arranged into inner circular and outer longitudinal. Submucosa of the stomach, similar to other parts, contains the nerve plexus known as Meissner plexus, or submucosa contains the blood vessels, lymphatic and connective tissue located in this, where this structure located on it. The differences is here. The muscularis layer. In the muscularis layer, the muscle arranged into 3 layers: inner oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. Between them located the nerve plexus, Enteric plexus. The inner circular in the distal part of the stomach, known as pylorus, the distal part of the stomach, becomes thick to form a sphincter, known as pyloric sphincter. the outer covering of peritoneum in the stomach is simple squamous epithelium serosa layer. Okay. In the duodenum, the same arrangement. The differences in the submucosa. The submucosa contain gland known as pineal gland. This pineal gland produce mucus that neutralize the acidity of the stomach. The lining epithelium of duodenum is simple columnar epithelium. Okay. Thank you.